You mentioned something called the Wayfarer's Sacred Way, and you have kind of just some ways to connect with God and move forward, like practical ways. Can you talk about that?
I think that's a key word, Courtney, practical, because some of these, this theology, this way of thinking, it can stay cerebral. It's in our heads. We know this thing, but can we actually pull skin on it and live it out at the kitchen sink and in our cars going on our way to work and beside hospital beds and in the middle of stories that we desperately want a way out of? We're all like the children of Israel, all in the places of suffering, caught between a rock and a hard place, between the Egyptians coming at us and the Red Sea, and we're all looking for an exodus. We're all looking for a way through. Ultimately, we're looking for a way through in the midst of our broken expectations and hard places and suffering. We're looking away for out of bondage to all kinds of things and looking for a way through to bonding with God himself. And the way across those waters is to live like a cross. God parts those waters, divides those waters, the waves we're facing, when we have an undivided heart that is deeply bonded to him. But how do we do that practically every day in the midst of our everyday lives? So ultimately, Waymaker is talking about, yes, we want a way through. The way through is always the way of Jesus himself. Do you have a way of life, a rule of life, spiritual disciplines, daily practical habits that keep you your eyes focused on the way himself? So at the back of Waymaker, it's right. Wayfarer's Compass, a sacred way of life. Sacred is actually an acronym. The word sacred itself means to be set apart for. So we are set apart to be bonded intimately with God himself. And sacred, the acronym breaks down as, can I start every day with stillness to know God, to actually pause at the beginning of the day, or every time I hit a no way in the middle of my day, to say, I can be still and trust that God is the one in control and he's going to be the one who brings me deliverance. When my posture of stillness says that I am living into trustfulness to God. God is the one who can do this. The A of sacred is attentiveness to hear God. Lots of times we have questions about, like, why am I in this place right now? Or like, where are you and why haven't you come through? And God has questions for us. So can we be attentive, the A of sacred attentiveness, to hear God? God who has questions to us. God says in Mark 8:29, who do you say that I am? Every day when I wake up, the first thing I say is, like, who do I say that you are, God? If I believe that my Abba Father is a king of the universe, what do I ultimately have to be afraid of? So determining who God is at the beginning of the day determines the trajectory I have through the day. And then just the question he asked Hagar, where are you coming from and where are you going to? Can you attend to the questions God has for your soul? Because if we are ultimately living a life about relationship, we have to locate our souls in relation to him. The C of sacred is, we mentioned this cruciformity, to surrender to God. How do I need to live cruciform today, to live into a posture of surrender to God? What do I have to give up today to reach out to God and reach out to other people? Waymaker talks about the idea of sacrifice in Hebrew is, that word is korban, and it doesn't mean we're actually giving up something. We actually lose something to gain more, to draw nearer to. So what do I have to surrender today in a posture of cruciformity to move closer to God and people? The R of sacred is revelation, to see God. We can't walk out into our day unless we've had a fresh revelation of God from his word. So do you have a scripture that you can write down on a sticky note and copy somewhere so that you're carrying a verse that God has spoken to you today from your chronological reading through scripture that is going to be like a compass for you throughout the day? The E of sacred is examine. How, like 360 some times through scripture, we're asked the question, what are you afraid of? Do not be afraid. So to always keep asking yourself, like, what am I afraid of right now? Because lots of times fear, we're not so much hustling as we are being driven by fear. So to pause, to be still and ask, what am I afraid of right now? And give that to the Lord. And the D of sacred is doxology, thanksgiving. There is always, always something to be thankful for. And if joy is a function of gratitude, and I want to get to joy, joy is a function of gratitude. Gratitude is a function of perspective. Can I shift my perspective to see that there's something to be grateful for? And then I enter into his courts with thanksgiving, and in his presence is fullness of joy. And that is my sacred way of life, my sacred rhythm of life. So no matter what obstacles I encounter on the way, I have a way through, not to a place, but I have a way of life that keeps me in the way of Jesus himself.